When we walked in here, Michael was like, where's the apartment? Where's the apartment? And then we walked in here, and Michael still kept saying, where's the apartment? Where's the apartment? Because he kept thinking it was the foyer of the building still. And it's not, it's our living room.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
So we live on Fifth Avenue, literally across the street from the zoo. We could go to the park every single day. However, we have a dog who hates living in the city. And so he doesn't like walking in the park. He doesn't like going outside. He likes to sit right here and watch everybody come and go. And he just prays for the moment when we pack up the car and drive back up to the country, because he's a country bumpkin. And this is definitely Tuck's throne, which is very appropriate to the apartment. I'm Darren Henault. I'm an interior designer living in New York. I live here with my husband, Michael, and my children, Bunny and Lulu. And you may remember me from this summer when Alice and Kenworthy also shot my house up in Millbrook. And I think the interesting part of coming here today is this is a polar opposite experience of my house in Millbrook. You know, I wish I could tell you more about the ceiling other than to say that in the 1890s, more was more. These people were definitely trying to show off all of their new wealth. So why wouldn't you add more ornament to the ceiling, because it's a perfect canvas. And so this is all hand-done plasterwork, then gold-leafed and painted. It's just a little more is more. So originally this was the Berwind mansion, built in 1890. It's a massive house. This was one of the grandest mansions built on Fifth Avenue, in line with the Frick. Or the Carnegie Mansion. And it's one of the few left still standing. It's one of the few that's still a private home in that it's owned by one person. It has been divided into apartments. There are 4 apartments in the building, and we rent one of those apartments. We live in the Maisonette. So the general decor of the apartment is Charles X. It is very French. It is extraordinarily ornate. The walls are all paneled in miles and miles and miles of mahogany. But more interesting than that is they could have just left it alone with the miles of mahogany, and it would have been very staid and very austere and very beautiful. But then they covered the walls in ormolu. Ormolu is bronze, which is then gold plated. So each piece of this is an individual piece of bronze detailing that's been applied to the molding. Every single one of these pieces of gold is an individual piece of bronze that's been fitted to the room, made for the room. So the level of quality, things like this don't exist. And if they do exist, nobody's living like this. So the fact that we get to live in this, 1890s fantasia of the Industrial Revolution, it's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity. It's the thing that I've told our girls a million times, because I don't want them growing up thinking we're gajillionaires. We rent this apartment. We couldn't afford this if this were for sale in a million years. This is pure luck and an honor and a joy to be able to live here. The furniture's, look, truly, it was from another apartment. All of this stuff was from another apartment. These are Andre Arbus. These are really good. These are from an antique shop that the two of us saw them, and we just had to own them. I didn't care where they were from. I didn't care where they were going. I just had to own them. And they've literally been with us for 25 years. So this guy, funny story, Michael's got a friend who's an extraordinarily talented sculptor. And George was having a hard time, and Michael, being the great friend and patron that he is, commissioned George to do a portrait, to do a bronze of me. And Michael presented this to me 10 years ago like it was a fantastic gift, and I was kind of appalled. I was like, I don't want a bronze. Like, I'm not the president of a bank. Like, why would I want a bronze? So George, we soon learned, actually moved in with us and lived with us for the entire summer, not part of the bargain. Although lovely, it was lovely. And instead, he did a bust on Michael. The interesting thing is, everybody looks at this and thinks it looks like me. So there's a big discussion like, it was supposed to be me, then it was supposed to be Michael, and it sort of instead became an amalgamation of the two of us. That's somewhere between me and my husband. I'm not sure where. There's one thing, my husband does not know this to this day. We've been here for 14 years. So there's a trim store called Samuel and Sons, and it's where I take all my clients and I buy trim. I buy things for edging, drapery and tassels and tiebacks and little details on chairs. And I've been working with the same salesperson there for 25 years, Janice. Janice, I love you. Super talented woman. So I walk in there, these are new, I put these up. I walk in there and I had a little trim that I was gonna use and it was discontinued. And Janice was like, oh, I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna take this in blue and you're gonna take this in terracotta and you're gonna overlay them and you're gonna use them together and then you're gonna put this braid on top of it. It was $10,000 for the trim on those curtains. And literally to this day, I'm still like, how did I spend $10,000 on trim for, but it was a moment. We had just moved in and I was feeling like, I'm moving into a mansion on Fifth Avenue. I should have $10,000 trim. Total stupid move. So there is one little piece that it just breaks my heart. I don't know if you know who Ted Muelling is. Ted Muelling is a jeweler. He's got a great shop downtown, I think on Crosby Street, although it may have moved. And Ted had this amazing idea. Nymphenburg China is an old China company that does these super bright, highly glazed and painted figurines. And Ted had this amazing idea of going into their archives and pulling shapes out and just firing them in white, unglazed porcelain. And this guy's been with us. He's come to 3 different apartments with us. Like, I just think he's really beautiful. I think Ted's an incredibly talented guy. This is a collection that I started amassing probably in my 20s, and they're Victorian era for sock darning. Socks were so valuable and so hard to make during the Victoria era that they actually created these amazing sterling silver handled orbs with a black egg, and they would put the egg inside the sock to give it a foot-like form, and then they would darn the sock. But only the Victorians would create something this valuable to fix a sock. And when the girls were young, the girls would take these and play with them. There used to be 12 of them, but the girls would take them and play with them and smack things with them. And so some of them are broken, some of them are gone. This, do you all recognize this? I'm probably gonna get arrested for this. So this is, Rosa Mexicana. So one night I'm leaving Rosa Mexicana and there's this wall of swimmers, this incredible art installation of these swimmers on the wall. And I'd had a little too much tequila and I took this off the wall of the restaurant. Also, Monkey Bar, remember Monkey Bar?
Love Monkey Bar.
I stole an ashtray.
You're a little thief, Darren.
You know, I'm not trying. I just, you see these, I tried to buy it. I literally tried to buy it. I said to the waiter, I was like, just put it on my bill. Just put it on my bill. He's like, we can't, sir. We can't sell them. I tried so hard to buy this thing, so I stole it. So this is the foyer of the apartment. It's sort of ridiculous. It's a really big foyer. The things that I would want you to notice in here that I think are really spectacular is, again, when we get into the living room, I'm going to talk about the quality, which you cannot find today. Like, this is all hand carved. All of these door casings are hand carved. All of the plasterwork in the ceiling, that's real plasterwork. That's not wooden pressed molding. So it's, just as we go through, remember that we're in an 1890s building where you paid a craftsman $100 a year for the best carver. So you couldn't replicate this stuff today. It's almost impossible. We do have some hidden doors, so this is literally supposed to just look like a paneled space with only those 2 doors there. But in fact, that's the kitchen. That's the powder room. And then this is, we call it the breakfast room only because it's so tiny, but in fact, it's our dining room. It's what we use as the dining room. So behind this door is the powder room, which is easily accessible to everybody who comes in as a guest. And my favorite things in here are, I had these little drawings done of the girls by the same artist 3 years apart. My goal was to keep doing it and every 3 years to call Charles and have him do another portrait, but if we did the things we mean to do, life would be perfect, and life isn't perfect. A client of mine was a man named Meatloaf. Meatloaf's a rock star who sadly died recently. And I'd done 6 houses for Meatloaf and his wife. In addition to doing all the decorating, we'd collected art. We'd gone to Christie's and Sotheby's and just amassed, because he suddenly overnight had like 4 houses that we had to hang art for, and he liked very, very classical art. So this is one of the ones that I picked out. I kept showing him this one. I was like, I think I'm gonna put it here. And he's like, no, put something else there. And then I would show it to him again, and I'd be like, I think now I'm gonna put this in the guest room. And he'd be like, no, put something else in there. And finally, we were done hanging art, and that was still not hung. And he leaned over and he said something to his wife. And then he looked at him and he said, we'd like you to have that painting. And I said, why? What do you mean? And Leslie said, he really doesn't like the boobs. So that's how I ended up with a 19th century painting from Christie's. Okay, so this is the powder room, but you have to realize the powder room is being cut out of a space. Originally, this was probably like a footman's space or a butler space. And when these became apartments, they had to carve out individual kitchens. So this became the kitchen, but that's the powder room. And then these are all fake bound books. They're not real cabinets. But again, it just keeps going with the theme of the whole place is paneled in mahogany. So let's get downstairs. The apartment's upside down. Living rooms are upstairs, bedrooms are downstairs. So this room is right underneath our living room. So it's about the same scale as the living room. So it's a big room, it's a large bedroom. When we first moved in, this fabric was already on the walls. And originally I absolutely despised it. In that top drawer of that cabinet, there were 5 fabric swatches of what I wanted to change it to. But we never thought we were gonna be here. And every year I kept thinking, it's just a waste of money. It's just a waste of money. It's just a waste of money. And honestly, it's sort of oddly grown on me that this crazy, cruel, it's called cruel, by the way. I wasn't saying it was mean. This needlepoint technique is called cruel. So this crazy, cruel fabric is just sort of, it adds a lot of life to an otherwise, relatively drab room. So again, with that whole theme of everything's hidden, this room is supposed to look like a paneled room. And in fact, these are all closets. This is a closet, although it's really, that part's mine, so it's really messy, so I'm not opening that part. And then there are more closets on the other side. They're empty. We are the only people in New York City with miles of empty closets. A, because we have too many closets. B, because we're 2 guys. And you may remember I was probably wearing a white shirt and jeans the last time Allison interviewed me, because this is all I wear every single day. Not so exciting. 30 years ago, I had managed to save a little bit of money. I was feeling like I needed to go and see the world and get outside of my head and see creative things and inspire me. So I brought my friend Kevin King, when we went to India for weeks. And while we were in India, I bought in a market, I bought this silver embroidered outfit that would have been on a young Maharaja. And when I got back, as a thank you from Kevin sculpted this little boy to scale to fit the little outfit that I bought. And dogs have attacked it. 2 different dogs have attacked it, named it, mauled it. And I still bring that little boy with me everywhere, because I think he's beautiful. And I so appreciate that Kevin did that for me. So in here, I have to tell you, I don't know what this originally was used for in the house. It's this crazy glass ceilinged room. Everybody who comes into this room, they look up, they think that's interesting, then they look down and they see that there's a glass panel on the floor and they want to know what's below there. So the last place we're going to go to is downstairs. You know, this is where ski equipment gets stored, the massage table, because you got to put the massage table somewhere, right? These are more closets for luggage. I think they're half empty. And then behind the secret door, we get to go downstairs.
Who has this in New York City?
Nobody has this in New York City. Oh, some people do.
This is like a trap door.
So, this was a big selling feature when we were renting the apartment. The realtor was like, it has a 2,000 bottle wine cellar. We're like, yeah, we don't keep wine long enough to store it. If we get wine, we drink it. So I think we're the only people in New York City with a 2,000 bottle wine cellar that's never had a single bottle of wine in it. It's a beautiful room. It's a super cool space, but we've literally never used it for anything other than storage for the girls' old toys.
Thanks for watching. For more home-worthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.